And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And, folks, we got a great show today. We're going to talk about the Carmelo Anthony stabbing down in Texas. And we're going to talk about some of the other things that's going on with current news and affairs. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know. You're listening to Let the Truth Be Told Radio. I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on. Welcome, folks. Welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And first and foremost, let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior, Yahshua, for making it possible to be here. And I want to welcome everybody to the show. Folks, I want you to keep sharing it. The numbers are going out the roof. I think the American people and patriots across this country are tired of the lies with the regular news, and they're not giving us true information. So, keep sharing it around, keep listening, and we're going to keep bringing you the truth. And I think that's what the American people need. And in saying that, folks, there's a lot of misinformation going on in this case with Carmelo Anthony and this young, I think it's Austin METCALF. I want to be for sure. And, we talked about this case briefly the other day, but I wanted to get my panel back in here this morning so we can discuss this. But I want to say this to the American people and patriots across this country. Let us be first vigilant and think before we start putting information out there that is not true. We can see right now that there's a lot of loose ends to this situation. And people are trying to get numbers. They're trying to get likes. They're trying to sway your mind on this was something that was premeditated. And we just need to wait till the facts come out before we start making decisions on things like, well, the black kid's guilty, the white kid's innocent. I mean, there's so many scenarios that can happen here because we don't know what happened at that time. We don't know what mind frame that these children were in, and we need to get all the facts before we start making decisions and spreading the wrong information and getting this country all riled up now that we are trying to unite ourselves. The last thing we need to do is start talking about a race war, because if we do, the Democrats win, and then they get back in office and finish destroying this earth. And in saying that, I want to bring Doc in and Andre. Welcome, folks. How y'all doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Listen, man, I missed you the other day, Dre, but we gonna get it in for sure. Listen, you guys, this situation with the Metcalfs and the Anthony family is a true tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, parents raise their children up, and, you don't know what they children or our children do when we send them off to school. We don't know what type of attitude that they have. We don't know what situations they're in. But as parents, we need to understand and spend time with our children and teach them how to handle situations and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I think it's, to your point, it's very sad. And I know that we've also had another tragedy late last year with the Daniel Penny case, where, out of what he called protection, he was protecting his life and the lives of others. Someone lost their life, right?
Yes.
And unfortunately, the person that lost their lives, they were demonized, and Mr. Penny was praised. And I said, okay, this creates a very dangerous precedent going forward, because what if this happens again and the person's Black and the person who passes away is white? Now, at that time, I was just speaking very hypothetically, but I'm trying to make the point, we need to stop trying to heroize, right? Or make people heroes when a tragedy happens. This was a very tragic situation. Obviously, this young man feared for his life. Otherwise, he would not have been carrying a knife. So there's more to the story than what's being put out there, is what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, we need to really stop romanticizing and heroizing people that kill other people, regardless of what the circumstances are.
Dre?
Yeah, and the Bible says, teach the children the way they should go, so that when they become older, that they won't depart from it. And what you're saying, a lot of parents don't know what their children are like in school. Right. This is one of the reasons why my wife and I have advocated to and decided to homeschool. And we can take our kids through some of these situations. We can talk to them and build that relationship. So if we decide to allow them to go to public school later, then they already have a experience talking to us on a regular basis and working with us. It's not like, oh, how was school today? I don't know. It's more like they're used to talking to us about school because we're involved with their school. But a lot of parents aren't involved. They're working 2 jobs, and kids are going through several layers of bullying that they didn't experience, that we didn't experience in the 90s. We didn't experience in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. Everything is moving really quickly, and social media has taken bullying to a whole different level. So there will be things that sometimes parents will not know. And I pray for these children for during this time, because it's a rough situation. It's a rough environment.
Oh yeah, especially with the advent of AI and different things that can be done. To your point, Dre, these kids are subjected to a lot more technological bullying than we were. It's different when people, tried to follow you home, or they bullied you at school or whatever. But once you left and you got home, you were home. That was it.
Well, I want to say this. To me, it starts at home.
Yeah.
See, the big problem that we have today in our society is that we've allowed the government to come into the family structure and poison our children to make them think that they can just grow up and be in your parents' house. Your parents are supposed to take care of you, feed you, clothe you, and make sure that you got a good environment and all of these things. And as a child, you don't have to give nothing back, because the government says if my parents touch me, I can call them and have them arrested. And see, that's the problem that I saw coming in the 80s, because when I was coming up, things like this rarely happened. And let me explain why they rarely happened. Because the school got involved beforehand and took corrective actions and got the children together. Because when we was coming on, you had a beef with somebody, the school, especially if it happened on the school grounds, the school would get the 2 combatants together, bring them to the office and sit down and figure out a way how to solve this problem.
Right.
But see, and then after they got together, they called the parents on the phone.
Yes.
And said, you know what, your son David was in a fight today with so-and-so's son. We took this type of actions. Now, if it needs to go any further, we'll bring the parents from both sides of this incident to the school because
Yes.
these kids got to go to school together. They meet at the same places and then end it right there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But principals are terrified to do that now. And the reason why they're terrified to do that now is because a lot of times the parents are going to attack them,
Yep.
the administrators, right? And blame them. Like, how could you allow this to happen? And, I don't know if you've seen any videos, but you've seen videos of parents literally getting into fistfights with other parents or even administrators. So we've unfortunately created this environment. It's been created. And to your point, it starts at home.
Well, you know what? The first thing that we have to understand is, Dre, you said something that was very intelligent about what the Bible says if you train a child up.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a scripture in the Bible that said, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child.
Yeah.
And to all of you parents who took the new wave order of trying to make sure that your child was your equal and that you could sit them down and talk to them and do things with them, that they would respect you as a parent. See, when I came up, a child stayed in a child's place.
Yeah.
You didn't go around adults. You didn't listen to their conversation. And when your mom or dad told you to do something, you didn't talk back. You went and did it because you knew the consequences that you could receive if you did not follow orders or instructions.
Right.
See, what parents have done, if they've created this vacuum for themselves to be removed from their children's lives, because when the government stepped in and says, well, you know what? They put the parents in a trick bag. They said, if you whoop your kids and you touch them, then you could go to jail.
Right.
But then at the same time, when your unruly heathen get out there and he does ungodly things to other people, and then when they catch him doing stuff, then they tell the parent, you didn't raise your child right. So
Right.
now you got to suffer in with what they did. And see, that's the catch-22. That's because now if I discipline them and try to raise them right, I'm gonna go to jail. But if I let him raise hell and he get in trouble, I'm still accountable. Your thoughts on that?
I'll let you go first, Dre.
Okay. Yeah. I want to jump right into this because some of the new age stuff that came about because some of these parents who are already suffering from other things, whether it's suffering from the economy, self-medicating with drugs, maybe over discipline their children to the point where it became abuse. And that's when the government overstepped. And this is part of the reason that we're in this problem. Like, new age parenting, throw it out the door. But there are some things that you should learn from biblical principles about discipline, that you shouldn't discipline a child when you're angry, because that can you can slip into like abuse if you're angry. I remember my dad used to wait, like he'd get home and he'd wait. I think I was off the hook because I was and like 10 or 15 minutes later, he'd come in there and discipline me. But the discipline was in a way where we did the discipline, then we had a conversation.
Yes.
Right.
Those conversations still stick with me, on how I carry myself now. And like, sometimes I even get a little like teared up because like he expressed to me that this wasn't something that he wanted to do, but if he didn't do it, he'd be doing me a disservice. And becoming a dad myself, I understand that now.
Yes.
But I think that parents haven't been having these types of conversations because the way our economy is, some due to immigration, some due to other things, some due to drugs and other things, they haven't been able to like sit down and pass this knowledge down. And we've done a disservice to Generation Z and Generation A.
Yes. Doc?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got 3 girls. And, a lot of times people are like, well, why didn't you discipline them this way? I was like, because first of all, they're 3 different individuals. Okay. And I needed to know what made them tick,
Yes.
Sometimes, it rendered a spanking, but other times it rendered a different type of punishment. Maybe it was restriction. Maybe it was you couldn't go certain places for a short amount of time. When social media came around, it was like, no, you can't be online on Facebook or whatever these other platforms are, or, I have to take your phone. So it was one of those situations where learning, okay, if I take this away from you, it's actually going to hurt you more. And it's going to make you think about the consequences before you go and do other actions, and so that's why I had to, go in those routes, because sometimes, like I said, people got a whooping in my house because they needed a whooping,
Yes.
But then I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, I'm gonna give you a whooping because you just want to get back to what you're doing. So I need to investigate this and make sure that the behavior doesn't continue. And now I've got 3 children that don't necessarily need me like that today, and they're good citizens.
Go ahead,
I'd like to give the parents an encouragement, and I mean to interrupt you, Dr. Nichols. Parents need encouragement because I've seen this play out. I'm not going to put a lot of details in it, but
take your time.
Child services were called, right? And what I'd encourage parents to do: don't hide, okay? Don't hide. Tell them to come over, because the person that I saw had protective services come over after they were called, and they were there for like a week, and they were just like, well, we don't see anything wrong here. So if your kids want to act crazy, have them come over. Show them how you're feeding them. Show them how you're dealing with them on a daily basis.
Yes.
And they'll see, hey, this just seems like this child is just unruly, and that you've been providing a safe and healthy environment. Tell them to come on. Just like my parents used to tell me, like, hey, if I got in trouble at school and there was someone giving me problems, tell them to bring their brother, their sister, their mom, their dad, and tell them to come to the house, and we'll fight in the front yard.
Now listen to this, guys. Each generation had a different way on how children was raised. Okay. When I came up, my mother was a general. And what I mean by that, and my sisters and them can attest to this, we were under control because our parents taught us how to be still. They taught us how to think before we speak. They taught us how to use the proper utensils to eat. They taught us how to iron our clothes. They taught us the reason why we should be doing things. These were the type of parents that made sure that your children was under control. Now, every parent not going to be like that, because when my mother was raising us, we would go to other people's houses because we had responsibilities, like our responsibility to take out the grass, cut the grass, take out the garbage. They made us do chores. But my mother and father had us to the place where you could go to we would go to one of my mother's friend's house, and my mother would say and point to the couch, and me and my sisters would go sit there and wouldn't move. We wouldn't ask no questions until my mama spoke to us and told us. And if we had to use the bathroom, we would say, Mama, can we go to the bathroom? But the point that I'm making is this. She made us structured.
Yes.
She made us to the point where you're going to move when I say move. You're going to do what I need you to do. And my mama dead and gone, man. And to this very day, I still have the same structure. I took the same structure when I became 10 years old. And this is why I say people out there talking about these children who are doing things. But if you put children into a situation and say, it's time for you to be an adult, but you haven't taught them how to be an adult, nor have you prepared them to be a man or a woman. Because see, had I not had the training and good parents and good neighborhoods, I would be a hooligan just like all the rest of the hooligans you see out here now with no structure.
Exactly.
So it starts at home with the parents. The parents have to stop allowing the government to jump into our lives, because we're not raising men. When I was 10 years old, my father said, I'm not never going to call you boy again. And the reason why, he introduced me to the rites of passage from being a boy to that level of going to becoming a young man. See, we got to teach these things. We got to teach our children what the responsibilities of men and women are. But if you don't teach them nothing and they're not responsible, and they do whatever they want to do, You see what you see now. You see the killing. And the most saddest part is this. To the American people and patriots across this country, the moment that we allow the government to take prayer out of the schools, the moment that we allowed our children to grow up without a spiritual foundation, the moment that we never introduced our children to the Bible or any of biblical teachings that would give them a conscience, the moment that we start treating them and them not knowing about Christ or God is the moment that we gave our children over to the devil. Y'all thoughts?
You're not wrong, because the moment that prayer went out of schools, the school shootings went awry, right? Yep. Children getting in constant fights, fighting their teachers, fighting their parents. It's just a complete lack of respect. Now, I'm not saying everything was perfect before they took prayer out of schools, but it was, to your point, you knew those rites of passage. There was a structured discipline. It wasn't like the Catholic Church discipline, but it was more so, respect your neighbor as yourself. Do not steal, right? Just basic moral principles that do fall under the 10 Commandments that we got away from in our schools, just abiding by being a civil human being. They stopped teaching those principles. Right? Because the school said it's the parents' responsibility, or the parents said it's the school's responsibility, and then nobody was being responsible at all. And this is what we have. Now we have a whole generation of people who feel like they don't have to respect anybody, but they're entitled to be respected.
Dre?
Absolutely. And taking prayer out of school was a mistake. Also, not forcing these kids to go to church is a mistake. We're not just making them go for giggles. We're having them go to create a structure, and you could tell the children and students that have structure and those who don't, because you'll see it in the way that they interact with adults. You'll see it in the way that they conduct themselves. You'll see it in the volume levels of their voices. Like, all this is important, and the two of you said everything that needs to be said.
Well, I want to tell you guys, this is a true story. My baby daughter was 12, and I don't want to say I'm a strict father, but I'm a father of rules. And I kept telling her mother that I wanted her to stay innocent. I want her to enjoy the world as a kid, not using makeup and all this other kind of stuff at 12 years old. So I go off the vacation and I come back, man, and I'm going over to the house to pick the kids up. And I see my daughter standing on the side of a corner with her friends with Cadillac, with lipstick on, rouge all over her face. Now she's 12. I'm driving a new Cadillac, and so they standing out there waving their cars, right? First thing I do is I pull over, say, what are you doing out here like that? She tried to talk smart. The first thing I did was grab a branch. This is what the paper said when the police said. This is what it was serious. It's a true story. So I get a switch and I whoop her home to her grandmother's house, right? And so I'm not thinking nothing of it, because I told her her middle name is Queen. I said, Queen, I don't like this makeup, all this stuff. You need to, so me and her mom going back and forth about it. But anyway, what they did was they felt like they got the police involved. And so when they got the police involved, I was the manager of Iowa Bearing Company. And I was, I had the keys to the store. And so they went behind my back, took her to the doctor and acted as if she had whelps on her from the switch. But to make a long story short, they dragged me into court for child endangerment. I go to my job one morning, open up my store, and 2 police are there. And I'm thinking maybe somebody broke into the store. And I was like, hey, guys, how you doing? Because I was a football player and I knew the police and all like that. Hey, how you doing? And I said, there's something wrong? They said, yeah, we're here for you. I said, oh, I appreciate that. So I'm opening up the store because it's not registering. But they were there to arrest me. So they arrest me, and everybody knew me. I owned a restaurant, I owned other business. They arrest me, and I explained to them what happened. So to make a long story short, and this is the type of parent that I am. I love my children. I gave them above and beyond the call of duty as a parent. I stepped every way with them into the schools. I was the father that was there. I had athletes at the games, making sure that they, were being treated right.
Right.
So anyway, they tell me that as a father that now I need to talk to a social worker, and this social worker is going to counsel me on how to raise my daughter because they're a little human, they're little adults, and we have to treat them in a certain way, right? So I denied any of that. I said, I'm not fooling with this foolishness. And then she said it was a court order. I said, I'm going to tell you, call the judge up. This is true. I went to court, and I had my sons to get about 4 or 5 garbage sacks full of clothes and toys and everything that she had. The state worker going to tell me about how, well, you can't be doing this and doing that. And I stopped at the point and I said, ma'am, do you have children? And she said, no. I told her to shut the hell up in the court. And I said, until you have children and you go through what I'm going through raising my kids, then you can tell me what to do. And this is true. I told the judge, let me tell you something. I'm not going to tolerate this. I got other kids that I have to raise, that I have to be a mentor to her. If I have to stand and allow my daughter to do whatever she want to do in my house, y'all can have her. They brought her clothes in. I set her clothes and told the woman, now you got a child, and walked out the courtroom. Before I could get out the courtroom good, the judge dismissed the case and told me to take my daughter home. My daughter's 40-some years old and she don't wear makeup now. But the point that I'm making is this. We have to structure them, and we cannot let anybody, if you're a good parent, you don't let the city or the government tell you how to raise your kid, because once they act up bad, man, then they're going to charge you, and your child will be messed up for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
You're not wrong. I mean, I didn't do something that dramatic as what you did, but I did go through a situation with one of my children, and their father and I were going through the divorce at a time, and I got a car, and one of my children said to me, who did you have to sleep with to get your car? Which is very offensive, right? Because that's not the kind of person I am. And that child actually ended up staying with their dad, and their other siblings stayed with me. But I was just like, I realized that you have no respect for me. It didn't ward anything. And it was one of those things, I don't know where this vitriol has come from this child. I mean, till this day, I'm still working with this child of mine to figure out, like, what is the real root and cause of your actions towards me. But I can see where, you can be like, all right, if this is the route you want to go and this is what you want to choose, then hey, I will turn you over.
Dre?
You guys have gone through it.
I
am in a situation where my wife and I, we started a little later with the kids. Okay. All my kids, my oldest is 11, my middle daughter is 8, my youngest daughter is 4, and then my youngest son is just like 1 year old. So like, it's like all love in the house. They still love daddy. They love mommy. Like, like we can do no wrong at this time. There's only like slight flares of attitude, but soon I'm gonna have 2 teenagers in the house, and I'm taking all this in. So I'm not gonna sit here and tell a story right now, because I don't have one like that.
But you know what, Dre? You they're at the innocence. Children are innocents.
Yeah.
And when children learn bad things, they're taught to them by somebody else or a different outside entity.
Right.
And so you have to keep your structure on your child.
Absolutely.
And the way that you raise them, because it was common for me to say, even to this very day, I say, yes, ma'am, no, sir. And all of those type of acronyms, because that's how we was raised, to respect elders. And that's the reason why we flourish, because when people saw, and adults saw a very respectful young kid, they would try to make sure they would help that kid to the place where, you know what, they're trying to learn the proper way. And I think that's what we've gotten away from with the new age parents. A lot of parents who didn't go to church, who didn't want to go to church, and didn't have that type of spiritual foundation with their kids. And then they let society tell them the trends on how you should be raising your children. See, the real problem is there's not a lot of real parents
Yeah.
that are structured themselves.
And parenting is not a fact. Like we have a structure on how it should be done. It really shouldn't be changed. As Dr. Nichols said, all you really do is adjust to your kid and what motivates them. Like, because with me, and my siblings, like, all my dad had to do was give me a lecture, and I was like, oh man, I really messed up, and that did it for me. But with my brother, oh, he needed a spanking. He needed stuff taken away. You know, we were just different. So like my parents realized what worked. Now, if I really got in trouble, I got a spanking. But like most of the time, they didn't have to give me one because if they started getting upset with me, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again because I've seen what it results in.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
But you know, let me tell you, see, y'all was the blessed generation. Because
absolutely.
We didn't get no little, just spank. We didn't get that. Let me tell you that this is a true story.
Give me a switch and don't bring back a little one.
See, no. Let me tell you about what an electrocution is. My father liked to gamble. And so the first time I deserved this whooping, I did. I really, because I was pitching pennies. Mama sent me to the store. I took her washing powder money and started winning and forgot. But anyway, she said, you will never gamble again after I get you home. And so I'm thinking, whatever. Because my sisters and them, I was the baby, and my sisters and them was always protecting, don't whoop them. But my mother told me to strip down to my drawers. And by the way, when you come into the living room, take that extension cord off that lamp and bring that with you. The last whooping that I really got was that whooping. My mother put that extension cord on me, and I was out of school for 2 weeks because of all the stripes on me. I looked like a zebra.
But look, you didn't gamble no more.
I'm 68 and I don't gamble now.
Look, because you're terrified. Fear guiding you.
It's the fact of the matter is, and I'm not saying parents are supposed to beat the kid down, but it hurted my feelings more than it hurted my body. Right. And it hurted my mother more than it hurted me because she cried like a baby to say, I didn't want to do that, but I did it to teach you a lesson, and it taught me a lesson.
Yeah.
See, that's what parents aren't doing. You don't understand that God gave you these children. You can't let the government and you can't let nobody else tell you how to raise your kid. Because you have to raise them according to their ideology, because every kid is different.
Yep.
Right.
Dre, with my sisters and them, they was hellions. They was like, listen, I had respect and fear for my father and my mother. And when they told me to do something, I would jump and run and do it because I knew what could happen, right?
Yeah.
Right.
My sisters and them, man, my dad and them would tell them, you supposed to do this, you didn't wash the dish. And they'd be like, and I would be in the corner like, oh my God, they finna get killed. And they would just walk off like nothing happened, man.
Right.
So, but my parents them used different tactics with them. They started taking things away from them and punishing them. But they got them structured to the place where they respected them, man. And that's what parents have to do. It's not beating your child to death, but children have to learn respect and authority, and that's what they need. And if you don't give them that, then you raise heathens, and that's what we're seeing, heathens today, folks.
Right.
Yes.
A lot of times people will mention like the fear of the Lord, but they'll forget that word fear, it means reverence. And if the parents had the fear or reverence of the Lord, then they would exert that to their children and build reverence from their children through the discipline, through the structure, through the things that we've all been talking about.
Right.
But you have to have, see, this is what parents don't understand when they separated themselves from God. Okay. You ever see that little cartoon where it'd be an angel on this shoulder and a devil on that shoulder?
Yep.
That's real talk.
Yep.
Mhm.
Because if you got some spiritual foundation, the angel gonna tell you, now you know you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
You're not supposed to light a dog on fire and let him run. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
You, I was a country kid, but you have to give a kid a conscience of goodness. Because if you don't make him question bad things that they want to do, then the devil is going to take over, and then that kid is going to do all bad things.
That's right.
So you have to give children a conscience of righteousness, because the world is going to give them all the bad things that they need. And if they got a conscious spirit and respectful spirit, it's a lot of things that they won't do, because that good spirit would tell them, you ain't gonna supposed to do that. You know, when you get caught, you're gonna get a mud hole stumped in you. And guess what? I'm not doing that. I'm going home. You see, and that's the kind of structure that's gonna get the Black community and the Black family back intact, because it never was a war on drugs to the Black families across America. It never was about the drugs. It was never about the guns and stuff. It was about destroying the continuity of the Black family. That's what it was about.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we're almost destroyed now. And if we don't change our children's attitude and put some kind of righteous spirit in them so they can fight off the urges to do wrong, then we're going to continue down this road. Now, folks, I want to change the conversation. The other day, we talked about this case in Texas, the stabbing. And so, you know, I look for facts and I do a lot of research, but I'm going to play a clip, and I want folks to take a look at this, because a lot of people are saying a lot of things, and I don't want this country to go split, because that's what things like this happen, and people jump the gun, and then they say, hey, you know what? Now we need to go out and kill a Black child, and vice versa. So we need to examine things closely, because when our children leave our house, we don't know what they do.
No, we don't.
We don't know what they do. And we don't know what type of attitude they have. But as a parent, if you got a bully child, you know that he's a bully. And this is why I say parents have to pay close attention, because with my kids, I talk to them all the time. But I want to play this clip because there's a lot of misinformation going on about this case, going on about the family. Doc, talk a little bit about what you heard on some of the cases about they bought a house and all of that.
Yeah, so there's a GoFundMe, which is almost up to $500,000, which is what they were trying to raise. I was under the impression that that money was going to be for their defense fund, right? Because lawyers do cost a lot of money and this person needs defense. But what's come about is they're showing these pictures, right, of this house that they recently purchased, and they use that money to purchase a car. But Dre actually found out some information that I wasn't privy to. So I want to kick this to Dre so he can share more about this house and this car that people are allegedly saying that they're using the GoFundMe for.
Well, thank you for that warm handoff. So what I heard online was that in 2023, they actually bought like a very nice house. This is a well-to-do family. There's pictures on social media of a video of the wife of Carmelo Anthony praising her husband for buying her a brand new house and a brand new Cadillac. So what people believe happened is they took those pictures and posted them and claimed that they were using the GoFundMe money for that. But if you examine the pictures, it's the same pictures from 2023. They didn't change anything. They just put them out there so people could speculate that they were mismanaging the money that people were sending.
Right. And on top of that, now they've doxed this family because they found the house on Zillow. So it's exposed their address to, you know, give them even more scrutiny, while this family, you know, they do get death threats, unfortunately. in this, in this type of environment. I mean, people's houses have been swatted as well. So now we've got that whole situation going on.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
go
And
ahead,
then
Jen.
with Pastor Larry,
Go ahead.
with the house situation, like they're saying that they bought this house with the money from the GoFundMe.
Mhm.
How is that
Right.
possible? You have to have at least 30 to 90 days to buy a house.
Right.
And if they rented the house, let's say they rented the house and they had to move from the house that they were going to the new house, they would have to get a court order to share that with the court, because this
Mhm.
kid has an ankle bracelet and has to go to the house that they designated him to do his house arrest.
Right.
But see,
It's not adding up.
that's the thing. That's the thing that we're going to see in this case. We're going to see a lot of speculation. We're going to see different entities trying to create hate in this matter. And my heart, man, goes to the Metcalf family.
Yeah.
When I first saw this incident, man, I was real heartbroken being an athlete. Anytime an athlete gets killed, man, it's a bad situation. But I also felt bad about Carmelo.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because, Doc, we was talking about it. And so,
Right.
I started to go dig into this thing, and I started finding out a little bit more about it. So this was not just a situation that this was the first time that these young men had locked in together.
Okay.
See, I found out that that there was a previous incident that led to a lot of this, and one of the coaches did break the story about what happened. And I'm gonna read that after we play this clip right quick. Okay.
Tonight at the ISD headquarters, but what happened here is awful enough, and then all of this behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Doug, you're on social media, so you've seen how quickly misinformation can spread. But what set this case apart was the sheer volume of fabricated content. We've seen fake autopsy reports, we've seen fake police reports. And all of this comes at a time that Facebook and Instagram made major changes to their platforms and got rid of fact checkers.
Police had barely begun its investigation inside the high school stadium when online, the fire of disinformation was raging. High-profile X accounts, including In Wokeness and Libs of TikTok, amplified the incident within hours, claiming the story received zero national outrage and that it didn't fit the narrative. These two posts combined have received nearly 50 million views. Shortly after, a fake X account posing as the Frisco police chief began spreading fabricated details about the investigation. The next day, a fake autopsy report surfaced on Facebook, falsely claiming drugs were involved. But it didn't stop there. The CBS Confirmed team, along with police, verified more fake posts, including this Instagram screenshot of guns, further fueling anger and uncertainty.
We've got print, we've got online, we've got broadcast.
Dr. Chip Stewart, a journalism professor at TCU, specializes in social media and free speech. He says the spread of disinformation online isn't new, but he says what Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, did just last week, he believes made it a whole lot worse.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram.
Earlier this year, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg.
Now, folks, let's talk about that a little bit, because under the Biden administration, my Facebook account was hijacked so many times. I stayed in jail so much, and they were infringing on our freedoms of speech. I mean, it was horrible.
Right, but they were directed to by the government. Exactly. And so with this situation with these two young men, and people have brought this up in a space that I was in, who is it that they're trying to protect? What are they really doing, maneuvering the way they're maneuvering? Now, for somebody to be a fake police chief and do a fake autopsy report, that to me, that's like, okay, then what's really going on?
Yeah.
What's really happening in this situation?
And what I don't like about this report that we're looking at is the virtue signaling.
Mm.
Because the first thing that they did was tell the story, then say there was misinformation, and then they want to take a dig at X and say that, oh, because they allowed misinformation to run free, we have this situation. No. It was abused first. X opened it up, and yes, it's going to create a vacuum for misinformation to get out there. But the damage has been done way before this incident, and for them to use this as an example is just unconscionable. It's just something that I think that they're abusing the situation instead of highlighting, hey, there was some misinformation, but they don't need to take a dig at X or other people that are trying to get this balance between the freedom of the flow of information. Now, like some of these documents that you see on X now, I don't read those because I don't know if they're real documents that people are putting up. So if people are falling for that, if they're getting like incensed because they're seeing different pictures and things, like you have to kind of balance your things and say, how much of this is true? And this is why I'm glad we have this show, that Let the Truth Be Told, because this is what we're trying to do, get the truth out there.
Yeah, like whenever I post a document, I try to make sure I post where I got it from. Like I cite my sources. Especially, you know what I'm saying? Because you have to. And a lot of times my sources, you think, or are you sourcing it from a website? Like I'm sourcing it back to the actual document. So I use congressional documents of what I'm talking about to verify what I'm saying.
That's a problem.
It can't just be any document.
Because you're doing the right thing, but most people are not going to check the sources, and that's the problem right there. They're not taught to check sources, and they're just like looking at things like it's the gospel, and they're just like, oh, this actually happened, but they're not looking back to see if they're posting real information and fact checking it. Like people can fact check on their own, and this is what the platforms are trying to allow people to do. Here's some information. It may be real, it may be not, but like you can determine what comes to you. If you don't want to see something, you can set up a filter to block it, but you can also check to see if it's factual or not.
Right. And the other thing that they brought up in that piece that they were talking about is like, all this started to happen after they got rid of the fact checkers. Stop that. Because the problem with the fact checkers was it was going to put us into a dystopian type of mindset. It's like, no, you're an adult. You're out here. Before you post something or before you even put anything out there, make sure you are citing your sources. Make sure you are actually being the arbiter of truth, that you are saying what you're saying is factual and that you're not misleading people.
It all. The fact checkers were political. They were for the Biden.
Right, exactly.
They were in the tank. They were in the tank.
Man, I'm telling you, even the fact checking stuff, man, it's totally crazy because I was put in jail, and this is why I say they have fake accounts where if they want to do whatever they want to do to you, they could. Even when I wasn't even on Facebook or on the computer, I was being put in jail for things that somebody went into my pictures, went into my account and posted, and I didn't know nothing about it. So it was a righteous thing that they got rid of all those fact checkers because they were checking people that shouldn't have been checked and things that they should have been checking, they was letting go. All those porno stuff, they ain't stopping that. So Facebook and all the rest of the social media platforms, they're looking for viewers, they're looking for likes and all that kind of stuff. So we have to do our own research. And so some of the research, because to me, when this first happened, it didn't sit well with me. I just couldn't see this kid just pulling out a knife, stabbing somebody at the first altercation. And there were some things that was said before that came out that let you know that this wasn't the first time that these two have been into a situation. And so I dug into it a little bit more because I want the people to know, this is about the truth. And the truth of the matter is these two kids had a history. And that history led to one of them being killed because of the situation. And so I'm going to read a little bit of this. This is what we found out. It said the week before last, Austin and Carmelo had a fight at a party. Carmelo took the loss and walked away. Austin and his twin brother had friends at Carmelo's school who started to harass him, so he stayed home for a couple of days. On the day of the tragedy, Carmelo went to the other school for a track meet. He was sitting in the bleachers and it started to rain. The coach told him to go and sit under the tent. He was under the tent with his friends when the Metcalf twins came over to the tent. They told him to go, and when he didn't move, Austin grabbed his phone and threw it so it broke. The twins then proceeded to jump him with Austin on top of Camilo. Camilo pulled out the knife and stabbed Austin. When Austin got up, that's when the twin realized he had been hurt. Texas is a stand your ground state, and self-defense is different and standing your ground that in Illinois. Camilo had the right to defend his property. Y'all thoughts on that now?
Well, okay, so that is a completely different compilation of facts than what has been spouted on social media over the past 2 weeks. Because some people pose it as, oh, he gently just came up to him and asked him to leave, and he refused to leave. And then he told him, if you put your hands on me, then you'll find out, what happens to you. What you just read is a completely different narrative than that is what has been put out. And that's the thing, and even Andre was saying it's been politicized now.
Yes.
And we talked about this the other day. I really think they're going to try to use this as the summer of love. And that's what they've been dubbed. And everybody knows what summer of love means. It means you're going to burn down another city, right? Or at least attempt to. And, we need social justice. So we're going to terrorize the city and the citizens in the city, even though the people doing the damage don't even live there. We need to let the facts play out and let the courts, determine what this young man did. Was he standing his ground? Was it premeditated? Or what did he have the right to defend himself? We need to let it play out.
Yep, Dre.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first shall be last. We saw all these social media influencers try to jump on this story really quickly. Yes. Misinformation got spread. We're getting information about what actually happened. We're getting information, and this story is unraveling before our eyes. But what we've seen, as we talked about prior to the show starting, is all this vitriol, all these hateful things that have been said. And I think that Pastor Lowery has it right, that we should not allow this misinformation and people fanning flames to create hate in the United States around an issue that happened between 3 boys. And I am really sorry to the Metcalf family for what happened to their child, because I could not imagine losing my child at school, at a track event. It's just, I can't even just think of that. But I don't think that the United States and people politicizing this and racializing it is good for our country at this time. And and just think about it. If it had been 3 white kids, we would not even be talking about this.
No,
we wouldn't.
Not at all.
It would have went away. It would have went away fast as it came.
Or if it was just all Black children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be talking about it.
No.
But now people have just gone into their corner. The hate mongers have gone into their corner. They're just trying to
stoking the fires.
We're not going to happen on Let the Truth Be Told.
Right.
Exactly. And just think about this. See, you said something that was powerful. If this had been 2 white kids, 3 white kids, and one stabbed the other, this would have not made a big hill of beans in the news at all. It would have been a blur, but then in a day or so, it would have been done. But because this was a different race, this was a Black kid and a white kid, now you put the political stuff in there, and now you got people pulling up on sides saying, well, you know what, man, that N-word killed a white kid, and now we need to get a rope and we need to do this. And then you have Black people saying white kids are always bullies, they're always pushing the envelope. And so, you know what, my son or daughter did what they had to do to protect themselves. so you're splitting the country into those divides right there.
Yes.
And that's why I'm telling people, stop right now.
Yeah.
Because let's stop. We all are Americans, and this is where conflict resolution comes to play. This is where common sense comes to play. Yes, it is a tragedy, a true tragedy, man. My heart goes out to both of them. But because our children would do things that we don't know that they would do when they're not around us, we need to wait till the facts come out.
Yes.
On what happened before we make these decisions. Now, I want to say this. Bullying have been around forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
and this is something that we as parents, we have to be able to look at our children and see what type of child that we are raising.
Yeah.
See, because you know what your kid, you got a good idea of your kid, what he gonna do, because he gonna exude those tendencies around you where you got to check him.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
If you know you got a child that's hard-headed and you tell him not to do this, and he over here fighting this sister, and he fighting this brother, and he fighting this cousin, you need to sit that child down and start having a conversation with that child and let him know you can't keep jumping on and taking things from people because somebody will retaliate and do something to you.
That's right.
Right.
We as parents know, because I had one of my stepsons was like that, man. This kid was, he was out there. I mean, he wasn't taking no crap off nobody. But I had to sit him down and talk to him and say, son, this ain't it. We need to look at this direction. We need to do that. And that's part of parenting. Because when they get at the age of 16 to 17 years old, if you don't have a good foundation in the kid, then the kid won't be worth a quarter.
No, they won't.
And he's going to spread that. So I think this, and I've seen it for myself, and y'all have seen it too with bullies. Bullies will put you into a situation where you'll be scared all the time.
Yeah.
And when I looked at this print, and I'm not making any decisions, but I can say this much. If somebody jumped on me all the time, and if me and you done had several fights, which I have had several fights with people that I've grown up with, whether I liked them or not, but we were smart enough to know that we left each other alone after a certain period of time.
Right.
If you have a child that you know that participates and that's arrogant and all of that, and bullies other children, you need to work on that child, because sooner or later a situation could happen. And when I read this about what the coach said, it seems as though that the twins were used to bullying other children. And this could have been the situation where this kid got to a place. Because if you can have a scary dog, I used to chase a dog, I back him up in a corner and he can't get out. And that dog was so scared that he'll start biting me trying to get out of there, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't keep doing stuff to a person that might be afraid of you, because sooner or later, they're going to respond. And when they respond, it could be very detrimental to you if you don't deal with whatever you have to. Y'all thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, like I said, and thank you for that heartfelt apology to the Metcalf family, because they did. You lost a child. You lost your son. And then to the Anthony family, you're going to lose your son as well, because he's going to be behind bars, irregardless of, how many years he will be going to prison. And that's the unfortunate part that, a lot of people really are just not looking at, is the loss of life on both sides, but he feared for his life. The question is why? And that's what people aren't really asking. Everybody's getting on to the emotional and the racial side of it and all these other things, but we're not asking the basic question. Why was this young man so afraid for his life that he felt that he had to stab another person?
Or carry a knife altogether.
Right, carry a knife, period, to protect himself. Something happened that we don't know about.
Dre?
Yes, absolutely. And let's say he gets off and he doesn't go to jail at all. There's always that stigma. There's always going to be that racism attached to this case. And he may never be able to live in peace.
A normal life. Right.
a normal life, all because of a decision that happened through actions of bullying. So we, like you guys have been saying, like the parents are so important in directing kids that they know are exhibiting signs of being a bully, because you just don't know how you'll respond if you've been bullied and bullied over and over again.
Yeah.
Let me say this, and I'm giving you these, what I'm saying to you is true, because I want parents to understand this. There are going to be bullies when your child go to school. They are going to be there. I can remember that I was 9 years old and I stayed at 1441 Sawyer Street on the west side. The landlord's son was older than me, and every time I would come outside to play, he would take stuff from me. He would take potato chips. If I was playing with a toy, he would take it from me. He was older than me, so, I was afraid of him. And every time he would take something from me, I would run in the house and I would tell my father, and my father worked third shift. And so it was annoying to him for me to keep coming in the house telling me, well, what this kid had done to me. And so my father told me, he said, the next time that he takes something from you, you pick a brick up and bust his freaking head. Don't come back in here and wake me up again, because if you wake me up again, I'm going to whip you. And I know. So I knew what a whooping was like. And so I went back outside. I had an airplane. They had these styrofoam airplanes with the Fantastic Four, the Hulk plane. So I'm throwing it around. So the kid comes up and take my airplane. Now, I tell him, give it back. And he's got one hand on my head and I'm swinging at him and he's laughing and all of this stuff, right? So I remember what my father told me. He said, he's bigger than you. Pick up a brick and bust his head. So when I jumped back from him, I grabbed the brick and I picked it up. And he kept trying to knock the brick out of my hand and I kept moving back. So he said, well, I can equalize this. I'll pick a brick up. So when he bent down to pick a brick up, he never got up. He never got up. They had to come get him up because I let him have it on the back of his head with that brick. It knocked him out. His parents had to come get him.
Wow.
But I guarantee you this, he never, ever messed with me again. He saw me. He never messed with me again. And we're grown men right now. I've seen him since then. And he still feeling this. He said, man, I'll never mess with you again, man, after you did that. But he had to come to the realization of himself that he could have lost his life that day because I was only doing what my father told me to do,
right,
to protect myself. And if they gave that boy a knife, if the parents knew that he had to have a knife, he had to have a knife to protect himself because he was scared of somebody that was going to jump on him. Y'all thoughts on this, and we got to get out of here, folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's unfortunate that he felt that he needed a knife to protect himself. It's unfortunate that he felt the need to protect himself, period. Which bullying, it's going to happen. But to your point, parents need to teach their children, especially if their children are bullies. You do not want to move forward and continue to bully somebody because they could react to you in a way that could be detrimental to you, right? You need to not push people that far. And if you are, what is going on with you that you feel like you got to bully somebody? You know what I'm saying? Like, really, what's going on in their household that they feel the need to oppress another person in that way and fashion?
Dre?
Yeah, and your brick story, this stabbing issue is an extreme case, but I also think that we should encourage parents to, like your father did, provide the kids with positive conflict resolution. Hey, if someone's messing with you, you need to go to an adult, because maybe if they had gotten an adult involved, maybe it doesn't escalate to where this kid's getting stabbed. If they got an adult involved after the fight at the party, maybe we're not talking about this tragedy at all, and they're able to like either, like you were saying, like you did with your your adversaries in the past, you just kind of stay away from each other and not deal with each other. Or you bring the families together and have a conversation and say, hey, we need to squash this now. Okay. But that never happened. But those conversations can happen with parents that have those conversations with their kids. And I encourage parents to do that.
Doc, your last words, we're going to get out of here.
Yes, well, when you see all these things occurring, look up for your redemption is drawing near. And with that, please check out the Redemption Party at usaredemptionparty.com. We are definitely looking for people to be candidates and to be servants of the people, not politicians, and also members of the party. So please check us out at usaredemptionparty.com.
Thank you, and we'll be talking to you soon, Doc. Dre, your last words.
Yes, so when we're dealing with immigration policy, it affects so many different people in so many different ways: housing, economics, our incarceration system. So if you have questions about that, please come to numbersusa.com. You can contact me directly, abarnes@numbersusa.com, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have or direct you to the right person.
Thank you, brother, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you. And folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. I want you to share it around. And I want you to think about what has happened here. Because of the lack of discipline, children do things that they wouldn't normally do. And to the American people and patriots across this country, this is the prime example of our children not learning nothing in the school system. Not only should they be learning science, math, and all the other things that can make them good adults, they should be learning how to deal with other people and use common sense to diffuse situations like you were taught. You were taught to stand up. We were taught to get parents involved. The school system failed these two children and these two families because they knew that there was a rift going on with these two kids, these three kids. And there should have been a meeting. The school should have been doing their job and saw this situation and diffused it by bringing both families together and solving it right there. That's what schools used to do. They used to be family-oriented. The schools used to call parents if you missed classes. The school system has failed the American people. And it's time for us to get this thing back in order. Instead of them teaching our children the things that they should learn to be a good citizen of this society, they're more worried about who they are, their gender, their ideas of being transgenders. All the stuff that's in the schools does not teach our children anything. And we, the people of the greatest nation on the face of this planet, need to come together and put God first again and get our schools and get our country back in together so that we can be one nation under God and make this country great again. I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. So, y'all have a great weekend, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.